Today on Locked on Women's Basketball, what happened between Vanderbilt and Camille Pierre? Plus, we get into Caitlin Clark injury updates.
You are Locked on Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Women's Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thank you so much for making Locked on Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. My name is Chelsea Leite. I am a WNBA writer, Canada basketball enthusiast, etc., etc. And today I'm joined by Stephanie Kaloi, who is one of my co-writers, team members. That's what I was looking for. Sorry. We just had so many tech issues leading up to this episode that my brain is a little scattered right now, but we're here, we're recording. But Steph Kaloi works over with me on the newly branded The Nine Basketball, brought to you by The Next. We're going through a rebrand over on The Next. So if you hear some different names, that's what's going on. But we are here to talk about the WNBA and, of course, a little bit of women's college basketball because Stephanie went to Vanderbilt. So we're going to start with talking about Vanderbilt and all of those updates, especially as the dust settles around the Camille Pierre news. And then we're going to flip into WNBA stuff later in the show and talk about Caitlin Clark injury updates and preview tonight's game. So stay tuned for that. But let's get started, Steph. Thank you so much for joining me. Also, you go by Steph, right? I don't want to start calling you Steph. It's so funny when you know somebody through Slack and email because they usually have their like full Govy name on there. And then you're like, wait, did this person have like a general name that they go by? But anyway, you headed to Vanderbilt the other day, I saw on social media, but Vanderbilt has been kind of in the center of women's college basketball news this summer, of course, after the shocking departure of Camille Pierre from the program. And it wasn't that just she transferred, because people transfer all the time, but it was after the transfer portal. And there was this whole thing where Vanderbilt put out a statement that she was no longer with the program and kind of made it seem like something happened to prompt this whole move. And then Pierre later announced that she had committed to NC State and Wes Moore's program, which is a huge pickup for them and is fantastic. But there was all this little circumventing she had to do to make sure she would be able to play because she transferred outside of the transfer portal. So all of this to say you were there at Vanderbilt. And like, what was the general vibe this week? Were they was it a workout? Was it just like an open media day? What was the reasoning?
Yeah, so I was actually there first to speak to Candace Story-Lee, who is their vice chancellor of athletics and their AD, and also Coach Ralph. So this was just us, one-on-one. The players were around. But the vibe is really good. I mean, Candace and Coach Ralph go way back. They met when they were 15. They both played. There's a really funny story about that. But it's a really positive environment. Coach Ralph, I think, is one of the strongest leaders in college basketball right now. And that's what she kept emphasizing is like, we all have a choice. We can look at the negatives of a situation or the positives. And, they've got a strong roster and I think they have a good season ahead of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, they had a great season last year. I think even when you take out Camille Pierre's great season, you think about Michaela Blake's and the season that she had, the program as like a whole doing really well in the postseason, just getting a lot of hype, getting ranked and all of that. But has there been any indication about what actually happened between Camille Pierre and the Vanderbilt program? Or is that just kind of something they're kind of trying to leave in the past?
I think they're trying to leave it. Coach Ralph very politely declined to elaborate or comment. But I think it's interesting because I think you go back to the SEC snub when Camille didn't get honors and Coach Ralph defended her on social media. And then you have, I think 2 months later, Camille says, I'm staying at Vanderbilt. Don't worry, I'm here. And then you had Coach Ralph's statement at the end of June, which was very carefully worded.
Yes.
And I ultimately think this is going to work out for everybody. I love NC State. They were one of my favorites for the tournament this season. I think Camille's style of play is going to be really aggressive and really exciting for them. And I think Vanderbilt I think there's a key phrase where Camille was dismissed from the team. And I think that may have helped Camille in her effort to find a new home. Like,
Yeah.
but if you follow the track, she's dismissed, which opens up, okay, now she doesn't have a team. Now she can go over here too. And NC State recruited her out of high school. They have a relationship. So it is what it is. Vanderbilt has Sasha Washington coming back. She was amazing for them. She had the blood clot injury. So we'll see what level she's at. They've got Aaliyah Del Rosario who can step into that kind of Khamil spot as well. I think it'll be great. Khamil was a great perimeter defender, and she was Michaela's go-to to get, if she's being. But I think both programs will ultimately benefit from this.
Yeah. And I mean, I pulled up the statement just so we could look at the wording, but it says, head coach Shea Ralph announced Monday that rising junior Camille Pierre is no longer a member of the program. Ultimately, it was determined it would be best for Camille and our program to go in different directions. We wish her the best of luck is the general gist of it. But yeah, like you said, very carefully worded to make it seem like it was I don't know, maybe discussions were had or something happened. Again, there's not going to go into detail about that kind of stuff. It would probably be on Camille in the future to say something about what happened. But like you said, she goes now to the ACC with Westmore, which is a very exciting conference when you think about the fact that NC State has been gaining traction. Notre Dame is there with Hannah Hidalgo, and all of that. And then you have Florida that has been, rising in lately. And then you also think about I think Camille Pierre will thrive there, even though the ACC has been known for dynamic guard play. Like you said, she defends the perimeter very well and is very dominant. So I do think that she will have a lot of matchup advantage when it comes to different players in the ACC. So, and I mean, for NC State, they just lost Sanaya Rivers and so why am I Isaiah James? I was for some reason my brain is going to Anissa Morrow. I was like, that's not, but it's Anissa Morrow and Sanaya who are on Connecticut. But anyway, Isaiah James and Sanaya Rivers recently just left the NC State program. So I mean, they fill that void, even with a different player like Camille Pierre. But anyway, I mean, it's just an exciting. I think people have a lot to say about transfers and people moving schools so often, but I do think he gives a little bit of an exciting factor to every new college basketball season, because you're okay, the teams are so different every year and players move and programs are so different and conferences are so different that you're this is going to change the dynamic of a player and also going to change the way they play. So I think it's really exciting when stuff like this happens.
I agree. I think sometimes people can be too quick to point to NIL, and I'm sure with various transfers, right? You had Olivia leave Notre Dame. And maybe that is part of it, but I think they forget these are also athletes who we assume want to go pro. This is the rest of their life, and they have to make decisions that benefit them as well. And I think, like I said, I really do believe Vanderbilt is going to be great. NC State is going to be great. This even gives, I think, Michaela and Camille the opportunities to really thrive as, the players for their teams.
Yes.
It really opens up a lot of exciting possibilities. And I think it's going to work out. Westmore, the dynamic, I think, with him and Camille is going to be fun to watch. The ACC is super fun. I was watching a ton of ACC games last season. I think everybody's good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what the good thing about some of these decisions is that in the end, they end up working out for everybody. And I think going back to Michaela Blakes, I mean, she's had a fantastic summer, was the MVP of the AmeriCup tournament, which was fantastic. And I think just for her, this is going to be her program now. There's no, of course we love a dynamic duo, but she now has 3 years, because she was just a freshman, of really running this program. And if she continues on the streak that she's been on, I mean, she's looking at being a lottery pick, a high draft pick in the WNBA. I mean, it's hard to predict 3 years out, but it's just exciting. And I mean, as someone who is, keeping an eye on the draft, because my Toronto Tempo are now going to be in the mix. I mean, Michaela Blakes is a great player to think about having on a young expansion team, because again, she just knows how to lift a program. Because when you think about it, Vanderbilt, this year really went through that like ascension of, okay, like now this is a program that's in the mix of these top programs that we kind of talk about when it comes to the college basketball season.
Yeah, that was a huge part of what we spoke about as well, because with Vanderbilt specifically, like you can go back to the 90s and they were a dominant program, and we've had almost a generation of a lot of quiet. And, you know, Candace brought in Coach Ralph, and Coach Ralph started putting together the best team, like, you know, assistant coaches, everyone around her, and the literal players. It's really, I think the next 3 years are going to be so incredibly exciting for Michaela, for the team, for everybody involved. I think I'm really excited to cover. I'm really excited to see them play. I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, anything else that has come from that interview or any insights that you have that, you know, were interesting from those conversations that you had at Vanderbilt?
Honestly, I was fascinated by the role of the AD, and Candace is the first woman and the first Black woman to be an AD in the SEC. So, and she actually came into her path to this role started when she wasn't able to go pro. She played for Vanderbilt, got 3 degrees through the school, her bachelor and master's graduate, got injured. Yes. And at 24 was able to step into a role that led to where she's at now.
Yeah.
And she's the first person to speak of other women who sort of helped her and opened up doors, and men and other people. And then Coach Ralph is the same way. The first words out of her mouth are about other people who have helped her. And it just really spoke to, I think, the culture at the school and what they're trying to build across the board throughout their sports departments, but especially in women's basketball.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are going to get into the latest updates on Caitlin Clark's injury status. So stay tuned. This is Locked on Women's Basketball. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt on the beach, like I was last week on my vacation, but got back to Toronto and realized that the Blue Jays are doing so well. So now I'm starting to, figure out what's going on with baseball this season. And I'm excited to get to the Sky Dome to be able to take in some of the action. But again, to make it more exciting, FanDuel has new daily promotions every day and fun ways to bet on every sport, including baseball. Even for me, I'm a basketball person, but when a Toronto team is doing well, I'm gonna get on the bandwagon. But are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we are back. This is Locked on Women's Basketball. I'm Chelsea Leite. I'm joined by Stephanie Kaloi of the Next/the 9 Basketball. Again, we're going through a rebrand. You got to make sure people know where we're at. But we're going to get into some Caitlin Clark talk because, it's just kind of been a wild few weeks for the Fever with hosting All-Star, but then also kind of the damper of this Caitlin Clark injury. She re-aggravated her groin injury on July 15th. And then they had a back-to-back. So then she sat out on July 16th. Then it was announced she couldn't play any of the All-Star game or any of their activities. So she didn't do the 3-point contest. She didn't play in the game. And then the Fever were back Tuesday, which felt like such a quick turnaround. But they traveled to New York to play on Tuesday. And she did travel with the team, but she did not play in Tuesday's game. Steph White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, did announce that she had seen doctors in New York, but she hadn't really gotten the update on what was going on. And then the Fever ended up losing that game to the New York Liberty, 98-84, bringing them to 12-12 in the season. And as of this morning, they sit in 7th place in the WNBA standings. Unfortunately for the Indiana Fever faithful, she is out again tonight. Caitlin Clark is out against Las Vegas Aces, and the team didn't hold shoot around this morning, so there isn't really updates on how she's doing. But so that's all the updates. It's a lot. The biggest thing to note, though, is that Caitlin Clark is still out. And this game against the Las Vegas Aces, as we'll preview in the next segment, is really important to their standings. So it is disappointing. But you were in Indiana recently for the All-Star game, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And so what was kind of like the energy around the Fever team? Were they really trying to just like focus on the All-Star game and not really put much light on the Caitlin Clark news? Or, what was kind of going on in regards to her injury status?
I think it was definitely a big focus on All-Star. I mean, it was a huge week for Indianapolis as a city, and for the Fever, I think they wanted to host a great event. I think they definitely pulled that off. Even every time Caitlin was asked about the injury, which was every time she appeared anywhere, she even said, like, it sucks. I wish I was playing, but I'm really excited that this is all happening here. So I think the team at this point, it's like unimaginable 2 months ago before the season started. But at this point, we're on her fourth injury, So now we've all accepted the reality with Caitlin Clark missing 11, 12, 13 games of a season, which I never would have. In May, you couldn't have convinced me that was on the table. So
no, I mean, it's the first time she's ever struggled with injury in her entire career. And I think like I was trying to think about why this could be happening. And then you also think about the fact that she, was in a pretty steady routine of like college season, break, workout, college season, whatever. And then she does her senior season of college, does the whole WNBA season. And so you're at like a year of constant in-game action. Then she takes about like 6 months off before in that break, and then comes back to very intense WNBA. And I mean, I'm not like a doctor or a physical therapist, but I feel like that kind of like may have done something to her body or something, where she, the rest and the break and then she played for a year and whatever, her body just might have been in shock, and then these injuries are happening. But again, don't hold me to that. I think like the thing with that is like, I'm not sure, especially because people don't understand that like everything the coaches say is like told to them basically. Like, This is how much to say, this is how much not to say.
Very carefully phrased.
Exactly. Everything is a PR move. And so they could know more about Clark's injury, and they're just
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she never fully recovered from the preseason injury. She had the tightness, then she hurt that leg, then the left groin, now the right groin, and everything we know about Caitlin. And then everything when you're around her, I mean, the competitive stuff is real.
Yes.
She wants to play. She wants to win. She wants to be on the floor. And I would not, everybody, I'm not the only person who is saying this, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Caitlin is like, I can go, and they want her out there, and the fans want her out there, and the owners want her out there, and the league wants her out there. So I think Caitlin is probably one of the driving forces to Caitlin being on the floor. But
it's hard.
I get it.
Yeah.
Those can be long-term.
It's true.
She was talking about having a groin injury decades ago. She still feels now. So.
Yeah. It's hard because I'm sure there's such an immense amount of pressure put on Caitlin Clark as
a kid.
She's a 23-year-old kid, and not only does she want to play because she loves the game, but there's so many other factors, like you said, like everybody wants her to play, and so I'm sure she feels that pressure of, I need to give people the show that they paid for, I need to make people happy, I need to, all of these teams' expectations for this season are put onto me. Like, I can't even imagine the amount of pressure that one young woman is under, and so that's why I get what you're saying. Like, she wants to be the one saying, I can play. And at the end of the day, stuff like these muscle injuries are so lingering. They take so long to heal. It's like something where you can feel like it's better, and then you go out there and the smallest thing tweaks it again. And so I'm not surprised that like you said, the sequence of events where like she had the tightness, which was probably caused by like ramping up to come back to play after taking like 6 months off for the off season. You have that, and then she strains the quad, and then that turns into the groin, and then she's compensating on the other side, and it's like this whole thing that comes through not giving herself the amount of time to rest this injury. And it's hard because, like we said, like there were so many expectations on the Fever this season with her, and with having a new coach and getting all these players, and people thought that they had like a championship and I'm not saying they don't have a chance to do well in the off season, like in the postseason, because she could come back, and like I'm never going to not bet on her when it comes to stuff like that. But at the same time, it's trending in a way that like she might not play much for the rest of the season.
I know.
And
It
like,
may just not be this season. I agree. I will never bet against Caitlin Clark because
yeah.
Kayla Clark has done things that are unimaginable to me.
Yep.
But I agree that the priority should be really getting to the bottom of the injury. And
exactly.
that means, and I'll say too, the Fever play, like they've had some amazing games without her on the floor. Like the Fever are, they're fun to watch because you just never know exactly what might happen, which I understand it can be a positive
and a negative. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Coach White would also say, yeah, that's a problem. But we'll see. I'd love to see them in the mix with the playoffs. They're such a fun team to watch, but I really want her for the long term to be,
of course,
locked in there. And whatever that means for this season is what that means for this season.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's hard with muscle injuries because, like, for example, if it was just like her ACL that needed, you're like, you get the surgery, you do the recovery, and that's whatever. Or like, you know what the steps are, or like an ankle or something that like there's a recovery, or like say if you break a bone, you're just like, okay, this is how long a bone takes to heal, that's whatever. But with her, it's these muscle injuries that they can't really operate on unless it's like torn, which I don't think it is. And then you also like, you don't know how long it's going to take. There isn't really much treatment you can do except rest it. So I mean, it's a disappointing thing. And I think the more the season goes on, the more people are starting to realize that, again, like this is going to be probably a storyline for the rest of the season. And with the Fever, I mean, right now they're at 12-12, even record. They're not winning, they're not losing. And I think that's kind of just been the theme of their season is like sometimes they play really well, sometimes they struggle, sometimes, you know, when Clark is out there, they play fantastic. Sometimes she doesn't have the best night because of these injuries that are obviously showing on the court. It's just like it's been so wishy-washy, and I think there's a few teams out there that has been the case for. And so they're not alone in that, but in a very tight like 5 to 8/9 standings range, it's really difficult to be in that situation because, again, it could really come down to a game or two to get you in the playoffs or get you in a good seeding position. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's rough, and I definitely feel for her. I think in all of this, like my mind just keeps going back to her and being like, I can't even imagine the mental state. I can't even imagine the pressure to want to do everything you can to get back, but there's just nothing you can do except wait. But apparently she's seeing all these different doctors in New York and whatever, and so hopefully they're able to fix that for her, or not fix that, but like give her some answers and give her some treatment options. So that's the update on Caitlin Clark tonight. She is not playing against the Las Vegas Aces, but they still have a game and they're still going to go out there and we'll see. Maybe they'll win. But for now, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we are actually going to preview Thursday night's slate of WNBA games and talk about all of the different storylines with not just the Fever game, but everybody else as well. So stay tuned. This is Locked on Women's Basketball. All right, we are back on Locked on Women's Basketball. I'm Chelsea Leite. This is Stephanie Kaloi, and we are talking Thursday night WNBA action. We are fully into the second half of the season here. We have not a full slate of games tonight, but a healthy amount of games. There's 3, so 2 at 7 p.m. They are the LA Sparks versus the Connecticut Sun. Then the Las Vegas Aces versus the Indiana Fever. And then at 8:30, we have the Seattle Storm versus the Chicago Sky. So let's just take this game by game by game. First up, LA Sparks versus Connecticut Sun. Cameron Brink is still out, even though she looks like she is, starting to condition a bit more and come back to playing. But on the other side, you have Marina Mabrey, who is probable to play for the Connecticut Sun tonight. So this is going to be an interesting one. Yeah. I'm curious what your thoughts are this game and, like, you know, can Connecticut win, or is this going to be like an LA Sparks kind of? That's kind of the question when the Sun plays.
I know. They win? I love this. You know, I think the issues facing the Sun have nothing to do with the players on the floor.
No.
So I always am like, I would love it. I'm excited for Marina to come back. I think she's so much fun. She is such a leader for the team. Hopefully, come back. But I think the Sparks. I think this is their game. I mean, they're. that I don't even have much else to add to that. I would be really surprised. Kelsey Plum's another player I never bet against, and I think especially with this setup, that it'll be fun. I think it probably will end up closer than what maybe a lot of people expect, especially if Marina's definitely on the floor. But I won't be surprised for the Sparks to get. They're having a really interesting season. The Sparks. They just brought in, the
Latricia Trammell.
Latricia, she's in, so we'll see.
I mean, she's been there all season. They just announced it. Officially, yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be their game.
Yeah, and I think you have these players who had like their all-star snubs and Azurá Stevens and Dearica Hamby, and so I'm curious to see how they kind of like step it up in terms of like proving this team maybe is able to make a playoff push, but I think the real story is going to come when Cameron Brink eventually returns, and we'll see when that happens. But I mean,
it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that game. But then you have maybe the bigger ticket of the night, which is the Las Vegas Aces versus the Indiana Fever at 7 p.m. as well. Caitlin Clark has been ruled out, like we said in the previous section. Cheyenne Parker-Tyus is also still out. Just had her little baby a few weeks ago. So that is super great. But yeah, other than that, everybody else is good to go for this game. It is a very interesting game when you think about where the standings are. The Aces and the Fever are kind of just like, they've been trading wins and losses all season. And so having the season series over a team like that is super important when it'll come to the end of the season and getting those final playoff spots. And so I think both of these teams have such, motivation to win this game, other than the fact that like, you want to win every game, and like the Fever kind of have a target on their backs, and over the past few years the Aces have had a target on their backs, and so those are those narratives. But when it comes to this year and the standings, this is a very important game for both teams.
Absolutely. And I think the Aces have a little bit of a revenge. They want to get on the field. They're going to be playing really hard. I actually don't know what I think the end of this game will be. I fully expect Asia to drop about 40 points.
Yep.
No matter what. But I could see either team taking it, because it is we're in a very crucial time of the season for everybody, and especially these two teams.
Yeah.
And we need to make pushes if they're going to do it.
Exactly. And both teams, like we were saying about the Fever in the last segment, have nights where they're playing fantastic, have nights where they're not really showing up, and the Aces have been the exact same. There are nights when they look like the Aces of years past, and then there are nights where they just look like, I can't even recognize this team, and you never know what team you're going to get on any given night. And so I'm curious what team we get tonight for the Aces. Like you said, Asia Wilson always performs no matter what. She's always scoring. I think she's averaging something like 24 points a game right now, which is nuts. But they're definitely going to be trying to give the Fever a good competition and obviously win the game. So that one is definitely going to be what I have on my screen tonight.
Definitely.
So then we have the last game of the night, which I love when the games end at like 8:30. Like I love when we have like an 8:30 and that's the last one, especially as someone on the East Coast. Those 10 p.m. games are a killer. But then you have the Seattle Storm versus Chicago Sky, which has been so interesting because the Storm have been so up and down. They had that game against Dallas the other day. It was their first game back from the All-Star break, and it was just wild. There was chippiness happening. There was like the Storm just seemed discombobulated. They ended up not winning. Dallas, I mean, they're gonna take every win that they can get this season. But yeah, so I'm curious to see how the Storm come out tonight against the Chicago Sky. By every prediction or stat or whatever, the Storm should win this game. And I mean, you have Courtney Vandersloot obviously out. Michaela Onyenwere is out as well. Ariel Atkins is out. And Angel Reese is questionable with a back injury. So that is a little bit interesting when it comes to the Sky. And then for the Storm, everyone is healthy except, of course, Katie Lou Samuelson, who is always going to be on this injury report this season. So, yeah, I'm curious if the Storm is able to not take advantage. I hate using that, but, if there's injuries on the Sky team, if they still have these struggles that we saw the other night against Dallas.
I think they will, because I think the Storm was even surprised with this, you know, so I think they're absolutely going to come out and they're going to want to show, no, look, we're still who we are. The Angel injury is really interesting because I know there were a lot of fan reports that she kept asking to be taken out of the game, their most recent game.
Yes.
And that's super. I didn't realize that she had hurt her back. So that sort of starts to add up. If this guy is missing, if Angel's not on the floor, then I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'll give that one to the Storm.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Camilla is still going to be out there, Camilla Cardoso as well, but they're kind of a dynamic duo in the way that they both are able to.
They're beautiful to watch when they're when they're in motion. They're one of my favorite duos in the league.
Exactly. And so that really sucks to see, you know, one of them potentially be out. But Camila Cardoso, I mean, she just had an incredible run in the AmeriCup, like brought Brazil to new heights, literally because she's very tall, but also just like she's doing wonders for that program. And so to see her, like when they play through her and she's dominating a game, she can do a lot of stuff. But again, I don't think it'll be enough to overcome, you know, a Storm team who is going to be angry after their last loss.
Firing on all cylinders. That's a very intimidating, tough team.
And I don't want to see Skylar Diggins when she's, you know, fired up. I don't want to see Gabby Williams. Nneka. Like, that big three is one where I'm like, I'm not getting you. I'm not locking in with you when you're like in an angry, competitive, want to get back, get your revenge kind of game. So I think all of that is leading to a Storm win.
Yes, I agree with you.
Oh man. But anyway, it's still going to be a very great night of WNBA action. I think it's just the right amount that we're going to be fully entertained, but not enough that we're all like, I don't know where to look.
3 games in a day is good. 3 games.
Yeah. 3 games is good. Maybe 5 and 6 is a lot. Yeah.
That's a
little too much. But anyway, very exciting night. So enjoy if you're watching it. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on and talking all of this lovely stuff with me. Where can the people find your work?
Everywhere. Obviously, we have the 9 basketball / the next. I write for The Guardian. I do some stuff at Fansided. I also do non-basketball as well. You guys can always find me writing about some political things, some entertainment things. So I'm pretty much writing
everywhere. Lovely. Nice to hear that. But thank you so much. And for our Locked On Women's Basketball peeps, make sure to check out our YouTube, our Spotify, wherever you listen. And actually, I'll be back tomorrow to talk more WNBA action. So make sure to tune in tomorrow for, you know, to see how these games end up and everything else. But thank you so much for listening. This is Locked On Women's Basketball.